Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Crime and Punishment, the Infamous and the Courageous, the Los Angeles Museum of Police. And we're here today with the brand new Executive Director, Arias, to learn all about this remarkable walk through history with the LAPD. I'm sorry, who knew? This is one of those places that I am absolutely gobsmacked to actually realize exists. So what is it? Where is it? What's in it? Why does it exist? All those things I really need to know.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's a pleasure to be here with you. What is it? We're the Los Angeles Police Museum here in Highland Park, and we're so pleased to represent and preserve the history of the Los Angeles Police Department. We've been here since 2001, founded by Richard Koch, and him and a few others decided it was time to come together collectively and really highlight the traditions and the stories and everything that is LAPD that we've been proud of for the last many, many years since our inception. And so we're here and we're preserving that history, and we're welcoming, hopefully at the end of COVID, welcoming our communities back. We're wishing to really bridge that gap between the community and police officers and that will allow us to share these stories.
Even this building has historic significance.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned that we're here in Highland Park, but the building itself is, in fact, a historic landmark.
Yes, it is. We actually leased this building from the city, and this was the old police station out of Highland Park. It was the Highland Park Police Station. And before they had actually transitioned over into the Northeast Division, this was the rough and tough Highland Park Police Station. And it had much history, as you can see throughout the museum. We actually still have our old jail cells, our old felony cells, our misdemeanor cells. A lot of the history and the structure is still preserved here, and we're very lucky to be able to use this facility and house the museum.
And you actually sort of rescued it from decay.
We did, actually. There was a lot. Some of the officers that founded the museum were able to come in and really do a lot of work to preserve, again, those old jail cells or the many different artifacts that we didn't even know existed in here to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about, it's filled with all of the history and the ephemera and the stories of the LAPD. But why are those stories important? Why should those stories be told? What is it about the LAPD in particular that makes it something worthy of investigation?
Right. We know that the Los Angeles Police Department is one of the greatest law enforcement agencies in the world. I may sound a little bit biased, but we really are. We've seen many changes throughout history. We've adapted. We've been shown our own lessons. We've been taught how we can progress as a department. Although I'm not a sworn officer, I really believe that telling these stories and being sure to recreate through the histories and the stories in the museum is really important for multiple reasons. When you have your career, you really largely feel like your career is part of your identity. And I feel that if our officers really understand our foundational history and come through and learn the stories of those before them, we can see progress, we can see areas of absolute improvement, but we can also be part of the future story, which is what I'd really like to share. I would like them to be part of the new narratives that they want to see me preserve. That is my duty as the executive director, to ensure that we're preserving the stories being told. And in that, I hope that we can re-engage not just our officers, but our community in sharing and reshaping those stories.
So there are some pretty impressive stories. I mean, I was mentioning the infamous and the courageous and everything like that. But it's an ever fluid storytelling process. Recently, you've been able to sort of, I don't want to say rewrite history, but correct history and honor people who have served the LAPD that may not have gotten the accolades or the awareness or even the accuracy in what they did told prior to. So I'm leading you up to, there's some pretty impressive stories that are currently being told.
Absolutely. So two major ones come to mind. So we have the harrowing tale of Robert Stewart. He was our first African-American police officer on the force. He was actually a slave. And when he was freed, he thought, what better way just to serve and be back into the communities and become a police officer. And unfortunately, he faced so many insurmountable wrongs, if for lack of a better term, they were wrongs. He was falsely accused of sexual assault, and he was fired. and he did not get his job back. It was our board, our current board of directors, who saw this wrong and really pushed for us to not only reinstate him as an officer, but to honorably retire him as well. And we were so proud and so lucky that the Police Commission voted most recently during African American History and during Black History Month to have that be passed. And so we are very proud of that moment. We saw the wrong and we corrected it. And we did everything we possibly could in our power, the history, the archives that we had here, to support that cause and to push that forward. Another one that we have is, and I'm a Latina, so it's very proud for me to say that one of our first police chiefs was Juan Carrillo. And the Carrillos are very famous in Los Angeles, and they had a lot of clout. And he was one of the first police chiefs here with LAPD. And that's a story that we're looking forward to unearthing more and telling more, especially as the months progress.
There is a wealth of information here. I mean, obviously there's the displays and there's all of these stories that, of the different crimes that have happened that have been, notorious, and the stories of individual heroism, and now these new stories. But there's also a wealth of research material that is not necessarily seen, but is available to people.
Right.
So you almost have an archive of history buried deep and you can access it.
We do. We have the amount of archives we have here are just, it's almost mind-boggling. Sometimes, I'm relatively new, but when I go through and I see what we have, it's unbelievable, the history that we have just stored here and that we're able to share. I mean, we have some really, I'm not sure if I should be sharing, but we do have things like the Manson files on hand. We have reports. We have old books leading up to the arrest of Mickey Cohen and our detectives, and we have their notes, and we have so many beautiful and wonderful things, not just to share as history pieces, but I also love showing this off as a mechanism for officers to see how much we've evolved. We have the Onion Field. One of our generous and wonderful donors, Joseph Wambach, is the author of the Onion Field. And that whole incident changed the way police have approached their tactics from here on out. It was one of those pivotal moments that really changed the face of how policing went down as far as tactics go. Mm-hmm. And so we have many of these stories here stored, and back to the archives, we can look back on old police reports. We can look back on old annual reports of how, the police chief was releasing crime reports back in the 40s, even down to the 20s. Mm-hmm. And so we can see that evolution even just in our own archives. And if they want to come and research, one of my major plans is to actually partner with universities and other libraries and museums. And I hope that we can create a partnership to have that mutual membership so we can learn from each other's archives and see what kind of history we can all unearth.
Who can access it? I mean, who gets the opportunity? I mean, I would imagine law enforcement, but what about the general populace? What about somebody who wants to be a future Joseph Wambach, who wants to research?
Absolutely.
Who gets to access all of that?
We have just a normal system as many other museums. We have a request portal on our website. And what we do is we have them fill out their information. We welcome people from universities, different individuals from universities, research institutions, obviously law enforcement officers and other agencies as well. General public is more than welcome to also apply.
How do you get all of this? Where is it coming from? You mentioned, the Onion Field, and I had imagined that there are certain officers that would be willing to, if they were involved in something prominent, to give you exhibition materials. But where are you getting all of it? Where is it coming from?
We are lucky enough to have a wonderful partnership with the LA City Archives.
Okay.
We get much of our archives from there, but we are really supported in the collections and archives by many of the retired officers and their families who donate much of our collections to us. And so if they have an officer who's retired and maybe had unfortunately passed away, they come and they say, here, this was my father's legacy and I'd love for you to have it. Or, this was my mother's badge and, we'd love for you to have it. And, if you need it for any memorialization type of purposes, please have it. And so much of our collection and archives have been donated by community members, officers. It's really spectacular.
You support the LAPD's history, but what's the literal direct connection? Are you a part of the city? I mean, you're a 501c3, you're a
Yes.
nonprofit organization. So are you autonomous with different supporters, or are you directly tied to agencies in the city?
We are autonomous.
Okay.
We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we are not directly tied to the city. However, we do again have that partnership with the city and the lease of the building, and we are very still connected in with the mayor's office and with the chief's office, and so we're able to have these wonderful partnerships that enable us to do what we do here.
And you're talking about technology, your hopes to expand the technology, but you've already put some pretty interesting things in place already. I mean, I know that even though we're in a position in which we're about to, and who knows by the time people even get an opportunity to see this conversation, have an opportunity to come to the museum. But even if you're in the East Coast, you can still kind of visit.
Absolutely. We are actually in the process, after COVID, we pivoted as many others did, and we developed our virtual tour. So we have that in the works, and we're very happy that we were able to have the funding to go and build that. And we actually have that up and running. It's still not 100%, but it's up and running. So our virtual tour is on our website.
You're not a cop.
I'm not a cop.
You've never been a cop.
Never been a cop.
You don't have law enforcement in the family?
I have plenty of law enforcement in
my
family.
Therein lies one of the threads. Okay, but I know that you come. Oh, look, it's
perfect timing.
There's something happening out there. Well, there's a lot happening here all the time, good and bad. But you come from an entrepreneurial background.
Yes.
You are a very engaged woman in making her own path. You have a really illustrious history in the commercial world. You are now in a nonprofit realm in history based on law enforcement. You were the first Latina female executive director of this organization. There's a big story in there too.
There really is, and thank you so much for highlighting that. I would like to share much of that story, but I'll keep it short. I was really reflecting upon my journey to this place. I have an extensive background in nonprofit management, higher education administration, and I have my bachelor and master's degree from the University of Laverne. I'm earning my second master's degree at USC. And
you don't sleep.
I don't sleep. No, I do. I make sure that I get my sleep. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to function in the way that I do. But I really, truly feel I've run my own businesses. I've built businesses from the ground up. I've built 2 consulting firms. I actually have built a tech firm, all aiming to aid and assist small business and nonprofits. And so one of my passions really became helping these leaders navigate the business world and the nonprofit world to see their success. There's a lot of inequitable information out there that wasn't getting into the communities. It wasn't reaching them. We had, unfortunately, bigger organizations, I will not name them, but they would hand off a business plan or have a webinar and say, have at it, good luck.
Right.
And so I saw those inequities, especially in our underserved communities. And so I really began to dive deep into the nonprofit world. And I was fortunate enough to have so many clients in the nonprofit sector. And I also had clients in law enforcement.
Okay.
So I was able to really bridge the gaps in not just business management, but also developing organizational culture. And so it became my charge and my mission to help employees and managers intersect and function better. And in that journey, I was able to unearth these amazing partnerships. The learning was just I'm so blessed and lucky to have learned some of the best in the world when it comes to business management and entrepreneurship. I'm a board of director for the National Latina Business Women Association. From there, all of the wonderful women that I've met who've gone through the same journey, I've learned so much about not just how to manage and run business, but also so much about myself as a leader. And in this reflection, I saw just all of my experiences led me here. Everything that I've been working on, it was a bittersweet moment to let go of my businesses because I'd worked so hard, but I truly feel that God had placed me here to bridge this gap that I always felt in my heart.
So what is the story here that, engaged? I mean, it's a fabulous place to walk around.
Absolutely.
It's got a lot of, hesitate to say the word, but, fun things to see. It's got a lot of intriguing things to see. It's got a lot of important things to see. And, it's a dynamic environment already, but what is it that you want everyone to know, and what is it that you think you can do, and what is it about this particular place? Are we just making interpretations about what the LAPD is that need to be reevaluated? Are we do we just need to understand the culture? Do we need to expand the culture? Do we need to what is it about this place?
Right. I think in coming here, I was able to bring that to the table, to facilitate that bridge of understanding. And as you said, the understanding of past cultures, but also building toward a newer culture. And I really would love to see our communities coming in as a place of understanding. I've been very involved in my community, in many communities here in Los Angeles and throughout in the San Gabriel Valley where I was raised. And I really feel, especially being the first Latina, I really feel that I would be able to help facilitate those bridges of understanding and bringing people here to really see that humanization element of law enforcement. And that, again, is the culmination of me coming here and me starting my career here. Although I had to let go of businesses, I really feel that need here in the museum. And I'm so blessed and honored to be able to facilitate that.
All right, don't get mad at me, but what about the idea of owning the mistakes as well as celebrating the successes?
Not mad at you at all, because that is what we're going to build on. We haven't really touched on that here in the museum, but we're so excited and eager for that growth. We want to begin lectureship series. One of our donors, again, Joseph Wamba, we're going to create a research and reading room and a lectureship series. And we want to name it after him so we can begin facilitating and bringing authors in, bringing people in from the community to have these tougher conversations, to be a place where we can facilitate that kind of growth together, not just continuing to put ourselves in these silos, but to have that connectedness and to make sure that we are able to have the tougher conversations and really bridge that gap of understanding.
On a lighter subject.
Yes.
But, part of the appeal of maybe just somebody who wants to see something interesting. This is used as a movie set. Mm-hmm. This is used as the cornerstone of television series and movies and things like that. So what are some of the more light-hearted, things that people can enjoy and visit when they visit?
It's funny that you mentioned that, lighthearted.
Yeah, and I can't really say that about it with crime and
attached to crime.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things where you can look at it and appreciate it, even though it's attached to crime. We have some of our exhibits downstairs. We have our Hollywood's most notorious crimes, right? So we have a whole mural of Robert Downey Jr. and Lindsay Lohan. And so we have a lot of those fun things, just pieces and how LAPD was involved, in the arrests or, things like that. And we also have wonderful things, Jack Webb and Dragnet. I mean, those are just classic LAPD stories. And right behind us, the exhibit of Adam 12.
Sure.
I don't know anybody who doesn't know Adam 12, especially us in LA. I think we all know who, the show and one of our wonderful donors, Kent McCord. All of this is actually, most of it belongs to him. And he really made it a point to highlight just how amazing it was to play an officer on TV. And so his experiences we've recorded, and those are all great fun things. And as we continue to grow and evolve, it is my dream to build out a whole section of more interactive pieces for children of our community come in. And I would really love to have a little communications exhibit, so where they can see, hear, and pick up a radio call so they can hear what officers are hearing when they intercept a radio call into their patrol units. And, all these various different things, all the fun, lighter side, as you said, I really would love to highlight that as well.
Before we even sat down and talked, although the museum at this moment in time is closed, there were a couple officers that were kind of coming in, doing their own little private tour. Who do you find Who do you want to come visit, I should say? Obviously, law enforcement is going to have a natural affinity for it because they're just curious about your own. You always want to see,
Right.
somehow yourself reflected somewhere. But who else you mentioned, the community. Who else do you want to know and visit this wonderful museum?
You actually bring up an interesting point, and there are many officers who don't know about us, which is really interesting to me. So it's actually part of one of my, strategic campaigns and plans in my first 90 days to really flip that story around, to make sure that our own officers know that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, the surrounding community, we're in Highland Park, and then we have Eagle Rock. I would love to see more community partners come through. I would love to see more of our command staff come through, the command staff of LAPD. Not only just them, but other agencies as well, smaller agencies, perhaps Sheriff's Department, or I plug that in. My dad's a retired sheriff's deputy.
Okay, there you go.
And so
there was that law enforcement connection somewhere.
Yes,
I didn't find it, but
my stepdad, my father is a retired sheriff's deputy, and my stepdad is a retired sergeant out of Metro. So I do have that background in my family. It runs in the family, and so seeing various community members is really what I want to see. I was lucky enough to have parents that took my sisters and I to probably every museum you could probably imagine. I didn't know this was here. And so it shocked me when I learned of it through my wonderful network at USC. And so I would love, because I picture myself as a child running through a museum and looking and seeing all the wonderful things that history has taught us. I would love to see a little, version of, Erica when she was, 10 years old, and seeing her come through here and learn all the wonderful things. And again, those harder conversations, maybe she's learning a little bit of history in the way that it was told. And perhaps we can begin planting seeds of how we want the future to look.
Is this a unique facility? Because obviously the Los Angeles Police Department has a marquee name, period, and we have such a large geographic area that as the LAPD covers. But what about other metropolitan cities? Do they have their own police museum, or is this pretty special to the West Coast?
I would love to say that we're extraordinarily unique, and I do believe
Go
that
ahead
we are. However, we are not the only police museum. The thing is most police museums are actually at their stations or at their headquarters.
Oh, I see.
And a lot of them are in either their atriums or right in their hallways, and kind of commemorating their own police divisions or their own departments. There is the National Police Museum in Washington, D.C., whom we wish to model, and whom we wish to really grow and be just as spectacular and just as huge. There are some throughout the rest of the country. I know, I believe North Carolina has a great one. And I would like to say that we are actually the premier, at least on the West Coast. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm biased, but I would like to say that we are the premier police museum on the West Coast.
I would imagine, though, one of the nice things that you have that perhaps some of those other in-station exhibits, museums has, is the autonomous nature of this organization. Being a separate 501c3, you have the ability to add all of these programs that may not be complementary, but need to be put in place. You have the opportunity to partner with organizations outside of this particular metropolitan area, like universities and things, that you have more freedom and liberty to be able to do more things than some of these attached to police organizations can.
Yes, we do. Since we're 501c3 nonprofit, we are able to go out into the community, have a much bigger reach, have programming that is reflective of our community needs. If there's a request, or if there are community members coming to us and are asking for a specific program, perhaps maybe a partnership with police officers and younger generations of kids that are wanting to learn about law enforcement, we absolutely have the flexibility to create that programming. And again, meet the needs of our community. We're not attached, and we have that autonomy, as you said. We're able to build as we please. And the fortunate part is we're really pushing toward that. We want our communities to understand that we're here to reflect, listen, and really absorb and take in what they'd like to see.
But you also need support.
We need support, absolutely. Because we're 501c3 nonprofit, we are solely reliant on donations. So any sponsorships that we receive, one of our major donors is the Amundsen family. We've been so fortunate to have them support much of what we do here around the museum. And we have various other foundations that also support us, law enforcement foundations as well. And we are solely donation driven, but we are also membership driven. So we kind of have a dual model. Our membership is through either our officers who have deductions in their payroll, small deductions, $2 or $3 out of their paycheck. They come and they become members here. And so they really do sustain us, and they keep our operations up and going. So there are sustaining members and there are sustaining donors. However, we also have to actively seek grants. We have to actively seek new donors who are willing to come and support what we're doing and how we're interpreting that history and how we're preserving it. And so, yes, donors, we are donor and membership driven based.
And you have a pretty cool gift shop. I know that seems silly, but sometimes, I mean, that's really, that's obviously things that you can't necessarily get when you walk into your store around the time. And I know that's probably one of your sources of income.
It is. Alongside our tours and the ticketing from our tours, that is one of our other revenue generating streams. And so we're very lucky. One of our board members, Lori, she was very active in making sure that we had
fun stuff,
a fun gift shop.
I have to stop saying the word fun.
That's okay. No, I love hearing the word fun. It's perfect for here because we want our visitors to have fun. We want them to really enjoy this space. And the gift shop, not only do we have everything that we have in there now, but we really want to reimagine how we can include things like Adam 12. I mean, how cool would it be to have a vintage t-shirt of Jack Webb or Adam 12 and some, all of the different exhibits. So we're going to really begin to bolster our gift shop and hopefully let our community members and our visitors walk away with something that says Los Angeles Police Museum.
On a very practical level, I just have to reiterate, this is a pretty big space. I mean, how much exhibit space do you have? You have what, 2 floors, big, huge areas in all?
We actually have 3 floors, and we have a basement where most of our archives are. So there's 3 floors. I don't know the exact square footage, but there is 3 floors, and our main exhibit hall here on the 2nd floor has more than, I probably could spend hours up here. There's our police uniform room here. This was actually donated by Clint Eastwood. Scott Eastwood's his son. This was donated by Clint Eastwood, and he was doing a movie here.
Wow.
And so he let us have the build out here. And so much of that was built. We have our North Hollywood shootout room. We have really extensive exhibits, and we are very lucky to have this space.
And if somebody wants to find about hours and how to donate and how to help and what's going on and how to contact you and all that kind of thing, what's the easiest way for people to find out?
Easiest way is to go to our website. It's laphs.org, or you can simply Google Los Angeles Police Museum and it'll shoot you right to our website. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Our wonderful staff is constantly keeping us plugged into social media with wonderful and relevant posts. You could also email us at info@lapolicemuseum.org.
I love the Facebook post because it is one of those areas in which you're able to explain some of the more contemporary things that are happening in the stories and the rights that are being, the wrongs that are being corrected. Well, congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you so much, Maria. It was such a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thanks. And that's a wrap on this LA Current.